My ex-husband thought I was infertile, left me 13 years ago. In Tokyo he smirked, still single, right? My son's a genius like me. I smiled, meet my son. He went pale. The boy was his spitting image. I'd raised his son alone. His smirk faded into regret. I never thought I'd be pregnant and divorced in the same month. I whispered to my reflection in the bathroom mirror, holding the positive pregnancy test with trembling hands. 8 weeks earlier, Maxwell had stood in our kitchen, his posture stiff and formal as if addressing a business associate rather than his wife of 7 years. Claire, I want a divorce. The words hit like physical blows. I've been patient, but I need children. A family. Something you can't give me. The memory of that moment still burned. I'd stood frozen, still wearing the apron from the dinner I was preparing. A special meal to discuss one last round of fertility treatments I'd researched. But Maxwell, we have options. The doctor said. I've met someone else. His voice was eerily calm. She's younger. The odds are better. Before we begin Claire's journey, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being here. If you're drawn to stories about finding strength in life's most devastating moments, like when Claire's husband walks out citing her infertility as the reason, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us share more stories of women rebuilding their lives after heartbreak. Let's witness how a shattered foundation can become the beginning of something beautiful. Just like that, my world collapsed. The home we'd built together, the future we'd planned, all of it gone in a 5-minute conversation. He'd already packed a suitcase, already consulted a lawyer. The betrayal wasn't just in his decision to leave, but in how methodically he'd planned it while I'd been researching fertility clinics, believing we were in this struggle together. That night I'd slept in our guest room, unable to bear the emptiness of our marital bed. By morning, Maxwell had moved out completely, leaving behind only a folder of divorce papers and information about his generous financial settlement. Enough for 3 months' rent on a modest apartment while I got on my feet. The settlement seemed like a fortune until I started apartment hunting. 7 years as a housewife had left me with an empty resume and no recent work experience. The only skill I had to offer was the interior design degree I'd abandoned to support Maxwell's career, moving 3 times in 5 years for his promotions. You have excellent taste, Mrs. Harrington, the rental agent had said during my 12th apartment viewing, but without employment history or significant assets, owners are hesitant. I finally found a small 1-bedroom above a laundromat, far from our suburban neighborhood, but walking distance to several businesses where I might find work. The constant hum of washing machines below became the soundtrack to my sleepless nights. My bank account dwindled alarmingly. Each morning I applied for office jobs, retail positions, anything that might hire someone with a 7-year gap in employment. Each evening I returned to my apartment with another rejection. 2 weeks after moving in, I found myself staring at our wedding album, wondering how the man who'd promised for better or worse could abandon me so coldly. That's when I remembered our fertility journey, specifically, the 3 embryos we'd frozen during our last IVF attempt. Embryos Maxwell had apparently forgotten about in his rush to start a new family. The fertility clinic was sympathetic but clear about my options. Mrs. Harrington, since these embryos were created during your marriage, you both have rights to them, the clinic coordinator explained. However, your consent forms indicate either party may proceed with implantation. I made the appointment immediately, using the last of my settlement money. It felt both desperate and defiant. One final chance at the family I'd always wanted, even if it wasn't the way I'd imagined. Between medical appointments, my job search grew increasingly frantic. My savings nearly depleted. I finally spotted a help-wanted sign at Millie's Diner, a family-owned restaurant 6 blocks from my apartment. Millie herself, a silver-haired woman with kind eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, interviewed me on the spot. Never waitressed before? She asked, eyeing my carefully pressed blouse, the last vestige of my former life. No, but I learn quickly, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. And I need this job more than you can imagine. Something in my expression must have resonated with her. 6-hour shifts starting tomorrow. Tips are split evenly. Don't be late. That night I practiced carrying plates up and down my tiny apartment hallway, determined not to fail at this too. The first week at Millie's was brutal. My feet blistered in shoes not designed for standing 8 hours straight. I mixed up orders, spilled coffee, and earned impatient sighs from more experienced servers. But I refused to quit. This job was my lifeline. Gradually I improved. Regular customers began requesting my section. My coworkers, initially standoffish, started including me in their break time conversations. "You're not what we expected," confessed Rita, a single mother of 2 who'd been at Millie's for 15 years. "When Millie hired you with those pearls and that fancy handbag, we thought you wouldn't last 2 days." I laughed, surprising myself. Honestly, I didn't think I would either. As weeks passed, these women became my unexpected support system. They didn't know about the embryo transfer. That was my secret hope, too fragile to share. But they sensed I was rebuilding from something devastating. Then the divorce was finalized. Maxwell didn't even appear in court, sending his lawyer instead. I sat alone on my side of the courtroom, feeling strangely detached as the judge declared our marriage officially over. No one mentioned children or fertility, just assets, liabilities, and the clinical termination of 7 years together. That evening I worked a double shift at Millie's, serving plates of comfort food while processing that I was truly on my own now. When Rita noticed my reddened eyes, she simply handed me a fresh apron and covered my tables for 10 minutes without asking questions. 3 days later, the first wave of morning sickness hit during breakfast service. I barely made it to the employee restroom before vomiting violently. When it happened again the following morning, Rita cornered me in the break room. "You're either pregnant or need a doctor," she stated bluntly, offering me a saltine cracker. The home pregnancy test I took that evening, and the 2 I took after it, confirmed what seemed impossible. Against all odds, the embryo transfer had worked. I was pregnant, newly divorced, working for minimum wage plus tips, living above a laundromat. I sat on my bathroom floor for hours, alternating between laughter and tears. This tiny life inside me was both miracle and complication. A connection to the man who'd abandoned me and my only remaining family in the world. Tomorrow I would need to make doctor's appointments, research prenatal care options with my limited insurance, and figure out how to prepare for a baby in my tiny apartment. But tonight I placed my hand over my still flat stomach and made a promise. "We'll figure this out together, little one. Whatever happens, you'll always be wanted." The foundations of my old life had completely shattered. But sitting there on the cold tile floor, I felt the first fragile beginnings of something new taking root. Morning sickness became my unwelcome alarm clock, arriving with brutal predictability at 6:15 a.m., 15 minutes before my scheduled shift. I'd barely have time to brush my teeth before rushing downstairs to Millie's, praying the nausea would subside before I had to serve breakfast. "Eat this before you start," Rita commanded one morning, pushing a plate of plain toast toward me. "Small bites. Trust me, it helps." As a mother of 2, Rita had become my pregnancy guru, offering practical advice without the judgment I feared from others. At 12 weeks, I finally gathered the courage to tell Millie about my pregnancy. I'd rehearsed my speech for days, terrified she'd see me as a liability and cut my hours. Instead, she surprised me. "About time you said something," she responded, arms crossed. "Table 4's been running a betting pool on how long before you'd admit it." She adjusted the schedule on the spot, moving me from the heavy breakfast rush to afternoon shifts. Less running, more sitting between tables. And no more carrying those big coffee urns. Word of my pregnancy spread quickly among the regular customers. Most were kind, leaving extra tips with whispered encouragements or sharing stories of their own children. A few elderly patrons even began bringing hand-knitted baby items, leaving them with their payment. "My Harold worked 2 jobs when I was expecting our first," shared Dot, a widow who came every Tuesday for meatloaf. "You're doing what mothers have always done, whatever it takes." These small kindnesses sustained me through the mounting financial pressure. Each doctor's appointment required difficult calculations. How many extra shifts could I pick up to cover the copay? Which bills could be delayed another week? The prenatal vitamins alone consumed an alarming percentage of my grocery budget. By my second trimester, I'd developed a ruthless spreadsheet tracking every penny. Baby essentials were categorized by necessity, crib and car seat at the top, cute outfits and fancy gadgets crossed off entirely. I scoured thrift shops on Sunday afternoons, my one day off, collecting gently used baby clothes and equipment at fraction of retail prices. My tiny apartment transformed with each passing month. The living room gradually surrendered to baby preparations. A second-hand crib Rita helped me assemble, a rocking chair rescued from a yard sale, a changing table fashioned from an old dresser I refinished myself. "You've got real talent with this stuff," commented Shelley, another waitress who'd helped me carry the dresser up 3 flights of stairs. "Ever think about doing this for money? Fixing up old furniture?" I hadn't considered it, but her comment planted a seed. In evenings after my shift, I began watching furniture restoration videos online, taking notes on techniques that might become useful someday. As my belly expanded, my world simultaneously shrank and expanded. Physically, everything became more difficult. The walk to work, standing for hours, even sleeping comfortably seemed impossible. Yet socially, my universe was growing. The diner staff organized a modest baby shower during a slow Tuesday afternoon. Customers I'd served for months brought small gifts. Even the laundromat owner downstairs offered free washing for baby clothes during my first month postpartum. "My daughter was a single mom too," he explained gruffly. "Someone should have done the same for her." At 7 months, a frightening episode of early contractions forced me to make the hardest decision yet. After a night in the hospital and stern warnings from my doctor, I reluctantly gave notice at Millie's. "About time," Millie said, surprising me again. "Was wondering when you'd finally listen to sense." She handed me an envelope containing severance pay, something I knew the small business could barely afford. "Call it a loan if your pride needs that, but don't you dare refuse it." The final weeks of pregnancy were a strange combination of terror and peace. Terrifying because my carefully saved funds were now my only income, with no guarantee of when I could work again. Peaceful because for the first time I could rest without guilt, preparing mentally for the challenge ahead. Labor began on a rainy Tuesday evening. I called Rita, who drove me to the hospital and stayed through the first 6 hours before her childcare arrangements expired. The remaining 14 hours I labored alone, clutching a photo of the nursery I'd created as a reminder of what waited on the other side of this pain. When the final excruciating pushes brought my son into the world, the rush of love was so overwhelming it erased everything else. The absence of a partner, the financial uncertainty, the fear of failure. In that moment, there was only his perfect face and the fierce certainty that I would do anything to protect him. "What's his name?" the nurse asked, placing his tiny body against my chest. "Leo," I whispered. "It means lion or brave, something we both needed to be." Coming home to our 1-bedroom apartment was both triumphant and terrifying. The first night I barely slept, checking constantly that he was breathing. By the 3rd night, exhaustion won, and I surrendered to a new rhythm dictated entirely by Leo's needs. We established routines born of necessity. I learned to shower during his morning nap, to prepare food one-handed while holding him against my shoulder, to function despite sleep measured in 90-minute increments. Each small victory, the first time I successfully bathed him alone, the day I managed to do laundry without him crying, felt monumental. "You're doing great," Rita assured me during her weekly visits. "The fact that you're worried about doing it right means you're already a good mother." Gradually, impossible became possible, then routine. I discovered strength I never knew existed. The capacity to function despite bone-deep exhaustion, to soothe his cries when my own tears threatened, to keep going when giving up seemed easier. Our tiny apartment, once a reminder of all I'd lost, transformed into something precious. The first home Leo would remember, the place where I discovered who I truly was beneath the layers of Maxwell's wife and failed mother-to-be. Here, surrounded by second-hand furniture and budget-friendly adaptations, I wasn't rebuilding the life I'd lost. I was creating something entirely new. In those early months of Leo's life, I realized that building from scratch wasn't just about acquiring baby items or learning to parent alone. It was about reconstructing my identity around a love more powerful than anything I'd experienced before. A foundation far stronger than the one that had crumbled beneath me. As Leo's first birthday approached, my maternity savings had dwindled to nearly nothing. The furniture restoration hobby that had begun as a distraction during pregnancy became my first lifeline. I'd refinished a few pieces for neighbors in our building who then recommended me to friends. Soon I was balancing motherhood with a small side business, working late into evenings after Leo fell asleep. "Just 3 more chairs to sand, then I can sleep," became my nightly mantra, the rhythmic scraping of sandpaper a lullaby to my exhaustion. The furniture work wasn't enough to sustain us, though. By Leo's second birthday, I was juggling 3 part-time jobs. Weekend shifts back at Millie's, remote data entry during Leo's naps, and furniture restoration whenever I could steal a moment. Sleep became a luxury, often sacrificed for an extra hour of work or precious moments of quiet contemplation after 18-hour days. Rita helped arrange affordable childcare, connecting me with her sister who ran an in-home daycare. Family discount, she insisted, though I knew she was subsidizing the cost herself. I accepted with reluctant gratitude, promising myself I'd repay her kindness someday. Our routine was precisely calibrated. Wake at 5 a.m. to prepare Leo's meals for the day, drop him at daycare by 7, work remote data entry until noon, pick up furniture restoration supplies during lunch, collect Leo by 5, work on furniture projects with him, helping beside me, then perform the nightly rituals of bath, stories, and bedtime. Weekends meant diner shifts with Leo either at Rita's or playing quietly in Millie's back office. "How do you do it all?" new servers would sometimes ask, watching me race from work to motherhood without pause. The truth was, I didn't do it all. Something always suffered. Some nights, too exhausted to read Leo's full bedtime story, I'd abbreviate pages while he drowsily protested. Other times, I'd deliver furniture pieces with imperfect finishes, hoping clients wouldn't notice the corners I'd cut to meet deadlines. When Leo turned 3, I noticed something remarkable during a rare afternoon at the neighborhood playground. While other toddlers climbed cautiously or needed parental assistance, Leo scaled the jungle gym with startling confidence, his movements fluid and precise. "Your boy's got natural coordination," commented an elderly man watching from a nearby bench. "My son coached gymnastics for 30 years. I recognized the signs." I brushed off his observation initially, too preoccupied with financial survival to consider extracurricular activities. But as months passed, Leo's physical abilities became impossible to ignore. He walked earlier than most children, ran sooner, and by 4 was attempting cartwheels and handstands without instruction. One evening after a particularly exhausting day, I found Leo balanced precariously on our sofa armrest, preparing to jump. "Leo, no!" I shouted, lunging toward him. He landed with perfect balance, beaming with accomplishment. "I practiced all day, Mommy. Watch again." That night, I researched community programs, discovering the YMCA offered subsidized gymnastics classes for young children. The schedule conflicted with my data entry hours, forcing a difficult choice. Eventually, I approached my remote employer, negotiating flexibility that cost me income but gained Leo his first formal athletic training. His coach, a former collegiate gymnast named Carlos, pulled me aside after Leo's 3rd class. "Your son has something special," he said quietly. "Raw talent that shouldn't go undeveloped." Pride battled with panic. Developing talent required resources we simply didn't have. Yet watching Leo's face light up during practice sessions, I couldn't bear to limit his potential. "We'll find a way," I promised Carlos. "Whatever it takes." My furniture business expanded to include custom children's beds and play structures, designs inspired by watching Leo's movement needs. Clients paid premium prices for these unique pieces, unaware they were financing my son's growing athletic pursuits. By age 6, Leo's gymnastics coach suggested adding swimming to develop his upper body strength. I traded refinishing the pool manager's antique dining set for Leo's lessons, arriving early to clean the facility in exchange for extended practice time. Our apartment became a makeshift training ground. Sofa cushions repurposed for tumbling practice, doorways fitted with removable bars for pull-ups, hallways marked with tape for balance exercises. We invented games that disguised conditioning work as play, turning financial limitations into creative opportunities. "Why don't my friends have monkey bars in their living room?" Leo asked once, hanging upside down from the reinforced structure I'd built into our ceiling. "Because their moms probably have better decorating sense," I laughed, spotting him as he practiced a new dismount. As Leo grew, so did our conversations. During walks to school, I shared carefully edited stories about our journey. How sometimes life takes unexpected turns, how strength comes from adaptation rather than ideal circumstances. "Like when I fall in gymnastics?" he asked, his 7-year-old wisdom startling me. "Exactly. It's not about never falling, it's about always getting back up." He nodded, absorbing the lesson with surprising depth. "And that's why you work so many jobs?" Because you keep getting back up. His perception brought tears to my eyes. Yes, that's exactly why. Our bond deepened through these shared challenges. Leo learned to prepare simple meals alongside me, to manage household tasks beyond his years, to value what we had rather than yearn for what we didn't. By 8, he was helping me deliver smaller furniture pieces to local clients, proudly explaining the refinishing process to impressed customers. We had created our own world, imperfect but beautiful in its resilience. Which is why, when Maxwell appeared unexpectedly at one of Leo's local gymnastics competitions, the intrusion felt like an earthquake beneath our carefully constructed foundation. I spotted him immediately, still handsome in that polished way, watching from the bleachers with an expression of confused interest. My heart raced as I calculated the resemblance between father and son, now unmistakable as Leo executed a flawless routine on the floor. The moment Leo finished, earning his highest score yet, I forced myself to focus solely on my son's achievement, pushing away the panic rising in my chest. There would be time to confront the past later. For now, this moment belonged to Leo, to us, and the quiet years of growth that had forged us into something stronger than I'd ever imagined possible. "Did you see me, Mom?" Leo called, racing toward me with his medal. "I did it perfect." "I saw every second," I answered truthfully, wrapping him in a fierce hug while avoiding looking toward the bleachers. "And you were absolutely amazing." Maxwell waited by the gymnasium exit, his expensive suit out of place among the casual attire of other parents. I gripped Leo's hand tighter as we approached, my mind racing through potential escape routes. "Claire," Maxwell said, his voice sending an unwelcome shiver of familiarity down my spine. "I thought that was you." Leo looked up curiously, sensing my sudden tension. I forced a calm expression. "Leo, honey, why don't you go congratulate Tyler on his routine? I need to speak with this gentleman for a moment." Once Leo was safely out of earshot, I turned to Maxwell. "What are you doing here?" "Business trip." I saw the competition listed in the local events paper. His eyes followed Leo across the gym. "Is he?" "Not here," I interrupted. "This is Leo's moment. You don't get to intrude on it." Maxwell handed me his business card, now showing a prestigious law firm partnership. "Call me. We need to talk." Before walking away, he added, "He has my eyes, Claire." That night, after Leo was asleep, I sat at our small kitchen table, staring at Maxwell's card until the edges frayed from my nervous fingers. The perfectly embossed letters seemed to mock the modest life I'd built. One call could change everything, provide Leo opportunities one could never afford, ease our constant financial struggle. But at what cost? I called Rita instead. "He found us," was all I needed to say. "Want me to come over?" she offered immediately. "No, Leo's asleep." What do I do, Rita?" Her response was characteristically direct. "What does your gut tell you?" "To protect my son." "Then that's what you do." I finally called Maxwell 3 days later, arranging to meet at a coffee shop during Leo's school hours. He arrived punctually as always, now sporting gray at his temples that somehow enhanced his authoritative presence. "He's mine, isn't he?" Maxwell asked without preamble. "Biologically speaking, yes. The embryo transfer worked." He exhaled sharply. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you?" I struggled to maintain composure. "You left me because I couldn't have children, then immediately filed for divorce. When exactly should I have shared this news?" "I had a right to know. And Leo had a right to a father who wanted him unconditionally." The years of anger I'd suppressed for Leo's sake threatened to overflow. Not one who abandoned his mother when conception proved difficult. Maxwell's expression shifted from accusation to calculation. "I want to be part of his life. He deserves the advantages I can provide. He deserves consistency and love." I stood to leave. "Neither of which you've demonstrated the capacity for." "I've changed, Claire. Seeing him, seeing what you've accomplished alone, it's made me reevaluate everything." I paused. "What exactly are you proposing, Maxwell?" His answer came 2 days later, over an extravagant dinner at a restaurant I couldn't have afforded on a month's salary. He outlined a future that once would have seemed like a dream: remarriage, a home in his affluent neighborhood, private coaching for Leo's gymnastics, the best schools, financial security I'd fought so hard to create on my own. Leo would have my name, my resources, everything he deserves, Maxwell concluded. And you wouldn't have to work yourself to exhaustion anymore. The practical benefits were undeniable. No more juggling multiple jobs, no more creative budgeting for Leo's training, no more worrying about medical emergencies or college funds. I need time to think, I told him, my mind whirling with conflicting emotions. For 2 weeks, I observed Maxwell's interactions with Leo during supervised visits. He brought expensive gifts, a professional-grade practice mat, custom gymnastics grips, a tablet loaded with training videos. Leo was cautiously receptive, curious about this man who suddenly showed interest in his achievements. Is he going to be around a lot now? Leo asked one evening as I tucked him in. Would you want that? I countered gently. Leo considered the question with surprising maturity. He knows a lot about gymnastics equipment, but he looks disappointed when I don't do things perfectly. That observation settled in my chest like a weight. I recalled Maxwell's subtle frowns when Leo had struggled with a new skill, his quick glances at other, more accomplished gymnasts. The same perfectionism that had made him intolerant of our fertility struggles was now directed at our son. I arranged to meet Maxwell alone at the park where Leo practiced on weekends. I've made my decision, I told him, watching children play on equipment Leo could navigate with his eyes closed. The answer is no. Maxwell's confidence faltered. Is this about money? Because I can increase the support. It's about what Leo needs. Stability. Unconditional love. A parent who values his effort as much as his achievements. I can provide that, Maxwell insisted. Can you? 8 years ago you walked away when things got difficult. What happens when Leo fails to meet your expectations? When he's no longer the prodigy but just a kid having a bad day? Maxwell's silence was answer enough. I won't subject him to conditional love, I continued. We've built a life where his worth isn't measured by performance or status. I won't trade that for financial comfort. You're making a mistake, Maxwell warned, his lawyer's demeanor surfacing. I could fight for custody. You could try. I met his gaze steadily. But consider what that would do to Leo. And consider what a judge might think about a father who abandoned his wife for supposed infertility, then ignored his child for 8 years. The threat of legal action materialized in certified letters and formal meetings. I leveraged every resource, borrowing money from Rita for a consultation with a family attorney who specialized in complex parentage cases. He has biological connection but no relationship history, the lawyer explained. You have both. Courts favor stability for the child. The battle drained my savings and consumed my energy, but I refused to waver. When Maxwell finally realized I wouldn't bend, he offered a compromise. Regular visitation and financial support without custody claims. I need to know he's part of my legacy, Maxwell admitted during our final negotiation. But I recognized tearing apart his life would be counterproductive. The settlement we reached was practical but emotionally complex. Maxwell would provide financial support for Leo's education and training, with graduated visitation rights that prioritized Leo's comfort and schedule. In return, I wouldn't contest Maxwell acknowledging paternity legally. After signing the papers, I felt neither victory nor defeat, just the profound weight of having chosen the harder path for the right reasons. Financial security would have been easier, the comfortable life as Maxwell's wife familiar territory. But independence, hard-won and precious, was worth the continued struggle. That evening, watching Leo practice handstands against our living room wall, I recognized the quiet strength in our modest life. We had survived abandonment, built a home from nothing, and now weathered the storm of the past resurfacing. Mom, watch this. Leo called, executing a perfect cartwheel across our small living room. I see you, I answered, the words carrying deeper meaning than he could understand. I always see you. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together on our terms, not as beneficiaries of conditional generosity, but as the resilient team we'd always been. 5 years after our confrontation with Maxwell, I stood in our modest kitchen staring at an official envelope bearing the USA Gymnastics logo. Leo, now 13 and towering over me at 5'10", fidgeted nervously beside me. Open it, Mom, he urged, his voice cracking with the adolescent changes that reminded me daily how quickly time was passing. I carefully broke the seal, unfolding the letter inside. My breath caught as I read the opening lines. Congratulations, Leonardo Harrington. My voice trembled as I continued. Selected to represent the United States at the Junior International Gymnastics Competition in Tokyo, Japan. Leo's whoop of excitement rattled the windows as he grabbed the letter, reading it himself as if my words might have been a mistake. I made it. Mom, I made it. Pride surged through me alongside the immediate practical concern. Tokyo. The financial implications were staggering. International airfare, accommodations, meals in one of the world's most expensive cities. The program would cover Leo's basic expenses, but Coach Carlos had emphasized the importance of family support during international competitions. This calls for celebration, I announced, pushing aside my concerns for the evening. Anywhere you want for dinner. Later that night, after Leo had finally fallen asleep, too excited to settle easily despite his rigorous training schedule, I pulled out the calculator and faced reality. Between our modest savings, the furniture business that had grown steadily over the years, and Maxwell's court-mandated educational support, we were still several $1,000s short for the trip. The following morning, I called Rita, now manager at Millie's after the founder's retirement. I need extra shifts, I explained. As many as you can give me. Tokyo. She guessed immediately, having followed Leo's gymnastics journey from its beginnings. Tokyo, I confirmed. For the next 3 months I worked with single-minded determination. Weekdays were split between my regular data entry job and an accelerated schedule of furniture restorations. Weekends meant double shifts at Millie's, where customers who'd watched Leo grow up through stories and photographs left generous tips toward our Tokyo fund. I sold non-essential belongings, declined any personal expenses, and tracked every penny with military precision. Leo contributed too, insisting on using the small stipend he received from a local sporting goods store that had begun sponsoring him to help with our travel fund. We're a team, Mom, he said with the quiet confidence I'd always tried to instill in him. We get there together or not at all. 2 weeks before departure, the final financial puzzle piece arrived unexpectedly. An envelope containing an airline voucher for a business class seat to Tokyo and a note. Leo deserves to have his mother there. No strings attached. Maxwell. Pride warred with practicality as I stared at the voucher. After brief hesitation, I accepted it, recognizing that sometimes true strength lies in accepting help that benefits your child regardless of its source. Tokyo was a sensory overload of neon crowds and unfamiliar customs. The competition venue, a magnificent sports complex in the heart of the city, displayed flags from 28 nations. Leo's eyes widened at the international atmosphere, his typical teenage nonchalance momentarily replaced by awestruck appreciation. Can you believe we're actually here? He whispered during orientation, squeezing my hand like he used to as a child. We were navigating the complex registration process when a familiar voice cut through the multilingual chatter. Claire? Leo? Maxwell stood before us, not in his expected business attire but wearing credentials identifying him as part of the event's legal team. The past 5 years had added more silver to his temples but little other change. You're working the event? I asked, struggling to maintain composure. I relocated to Tokyo 3 years ago to head our firm's Asian division, he explained. When I saw the USA team roster, I requested this assignment. Leo, more comfortable with Maxwell after years of scheduled visits and phone calls, greeted him with a respectful handshake. Thanks for helping Mom get here, he said directly, demonstrating the honesty I'd always encouraged. Maxwell nodded, something like regret briefly crossing his features. I'll be at your events, he promised Leo before turning to me. We should talk. That conversation happened the following evening at a quiet restaurant near our budget hotel. Over tea that I insisted on paying for myself, Maxwell revealed unexpected vulnerability. Watching from a distance all these years, he began, carefully choosing his words. I've realized what I threw away. Not just a marriage but the chance to truly know my son. To be part of shaping him. You've had visitation rights, I reminded him evenly. Rights aren't relationships. His gaze met mine directly. You refused to remarry me, to accept my financial support beyond what the court mandated, to let me simply buy my way into Leo's life. At the time I thought you were being stubborn. And now I understand you were being wise. He glanced around the modest restaurant. You've given him something I couldn't have, authenticity. The knowledge that his worth isn't tied to achievement or advantage. The competition spanned 3 days of preliminary events before finals. Leo performed with focused determination, his years of training on makeshift equipment and community center facilities evident in his gritty persistence when a challenging vault didn't go as planned. Maxwell watched from the stands, his expression a complex mixture of pride and regret. During a break between events, he approached me with unexpected candor. "You know what amazes me most?" he asked, watching Leo confer seriously with his coach. "It's not his talent, though that's remarkable. It's his character. The way he encourages younger competitors. How he thanked the facility staff in halting Japanese." He paused. "That's your influence, Claire. Not mine, not genetics. You." On the final day, Leo exceeded all expectations, earning a bronze medal that represented countless hours of sacrifice and determination. As he stood on the podium, eyes glistening with emotion, I felt 13 years of struggle crystallize into a single perfect moment of validation. At the celebration dinner afterward, attended by Maxwell, Leo's coach, and several teammates' families, Leo quieted the table by raising his glass of sparkling cider. "To my mom," he said, his adolescent awkwardness momentarily replaced by earnest gratitude. "Who taught me that the real victory isn't standing on podiums, but standing by the people you love no matter what." As conversations resumed around us, Maxwell leaned closer to me. "You were right to refuse me," he admitted softly. "I wanted to give him things. You gave him roots." The Tokyo sky glittered with stars as Leo and I walked back to our hotel that night, his medal tucked safely in his jacket pocket. The journey from a broken marriage to this moment hadn't followed any path I could have imagined, yet somehow, we had arrived exactly where we needed to be. "Do you ever regret it?" Leo asked unexpectedly. "Doing all this alone?" I looked at my son, strong, compassionate, resilient in ways that extended far beyond athletics, and felt the full circle of our journey complete itself. "Not for a single moment," I answered truthfully. "Some broken things aren't meant to be repaired. They're meant to become something entirely new and more beautiful than before." Leo nodded, understanding beyond his years. "Like us." "Exactly like us," I agreed as Tokyo's lights illuminated our path forward. Two people who had transformed life's deepest challenges into its greatest blessings.